The old cargo ship moved slowly through space like a wounded animal. Its metal hull was covered in rust and dents. Steam leaked from broken pipes. Paint peeled off in long strips that floated away into the darkness. Anyone who saw it would think the ship might break apart at any moment. Captain Elena Vasquez sat in her pilot chair watching the alien space station grow larger through the front window. The station was beautiful in a way that made her feel small. It looked like a giant flower made of crystal and light. Graceful ships moved around it like dancers in the void. Her communication system made a sharp sound. A cold voice filled the bridge of her ship. "Human vessel, this is Admiral Kethvar of the Zephyrian Imperial Fleet. What are you doing in our space?" Elena pressed the talk button with steady fingers. "This is Captain Vasquez on the cargo ship Persistence. We ask permission to dock. We want to talk about trade between our peoples." Silence. Then laughter. Not just one alien laughing, but many. The sound went on until Elena's ears hurt. "Did everyone hear that?" Admiral Kethvar said to his crew. "The humans want to discuss trade. Look at their ship. It's a flying junk pile." More laughter filled the radio channel. Elena's crew looked at each other with angry faces. Lieutenant Torres made fists with his hands. Dr. Chen shook her head. But Elena stayed calm. She had known this would happen. The Zephyrian space station was like nothing humans had ever built. Through her window, Elena could see ships that looked alive. Their hulls curved and bent like the bodies of sea creatures. Some ships actually seemed to breathe. Lights moved through their clear sections like blood in veins. "Look at that pathetic thing," another alien voice said over the open radio. "How did such stupid creatures learn to fly in space?" "Maybe they found it floating somewhere and climbed inside," came another voice. This made them laugh even harder. Elena's second officer leaned close to her. "Captain, should we tell them to be quiet?" Elena shook her head. "Let them talk. They are telling us more than they know." The Persistence drifted closer to the station. Elena could see Zephyrian faces in the windows now. The aliens were tall and thin with skin like glass. They had 4 arms instead of 2. Their heads were bigger than human heads. Many pointed at the human ship and made rude gestures. "Human vessel," Admiral Kethvar said with disgust in his voice. "You will dock at Bay 97. That is near the garbage area. It seems right for you." "We understand," Elena replied without emotion. As they flew toward the docking bay, more alien voices joined the conversation. Elena's computer changed their words from Zephyrian language to English. "What do you think they want?" one alien asked. "Probably begging for our technology," another replied. "Humans always ask for help from better species. Maybe they want to trade their crude metals for real technology. What could they have that we would want?" Elena listened to every word. Her crew did the same. She could see anger growing in their eyes, but she also saw something else: determination. These were trained professionals who knew how to control their feelings. The docking bay was exactly what the Admiral had promised. It was dirty and dark and smelled bad even through their air systems. Old trash floated in the corners. Broken machines lay scattered on the floor. "Welcome to paradise," Chief Engineer Rodriguez said quietly as he looked out the window. The docking process took a long time. The alien controllers made the Persistence wait for almost an hour before letting them land. During that time, other alien ships came and went. Each one was allowed to dock right away. The message was clear: humans were not important. Finally, the Persistence touched down with a loud bang. The landing was rougher than it should have been because the aliens had given them a damaged landing pad. But the ship stayed in one piece. Elena stood up and fixed her uniform. It was a simple blue suit with a few rank badges. Nothing fancy or impressive. That was on purpose. "Remember," she told her crew, "we are just simple cargo haulers trying to make money. Act like it." 3 Zephyrian guards met them at the door. The aliens were even taller up close, almost 8 feet high. Their 4 arms moved in different directions at the same time. It looked very strange. Their big eyes studied the humans like scientists looking at bugs. "You will follow us," the lead guard said in broken English. "Do not touch anything. Do not speak unless we tell you to. Do not make fast movements," Elena nodded. "We understand." The walk through the station was meant to scare them. The aliens led them through the most amazing parts. They passed gardens where impossible plants grew in beautiful patterns. They saw workshops where alien workers shaped living metal with their hands. They walked by art galleries where the pictures seemed to move and change. Other aliens stopped to stare at the human visitors. Some pointed and whispered. Others made sounds that might have been laughter. A few children ran up to get a closer look before their parents pulled them away. "Stay near the walls," one guard told them. "Important people use the middle of the walkways." The humans had to walk single file along the edges while Zephyrians walked down the center. It was another small insult, carefully planned to make them feel less important. Elena noticed everything. The station's layout, the number of guards, where important systems were located. Her trained eyes remembered details that might be useful later, but she was careful not to look too interested. She had to act like a simple cargo captain who was amazed by alien technology. They passed a viewing area where several young Zephyrians were looking out at the human ship. Elena could hear their conversation through the glass. "It's so ugly," one said. "How does it even fly?" "My teacher says humans are barely civilized," another replied. "They still fight wars with bullets and bombs. I heard they can't even talk with their minds. They have to make noise with their mouths." The guards slowed down near this area on purpose, making sure the humans heard every word. Elena kept her face blank, but inside she was taking notes. The Zephyrians thought humans were primitive in every way. That could be useful information. Finally, they reached a small meeting room in the diplomatic section. It was the smallest, plainest room Elena had ever seen in the station. The furniture was basic metal chairs and a simple table. No artwork decorated the walls. Even the lights were dim. "You will wait here," the lead guard announced. "The council will decide if you are worth their time." The guards left and locked the door behind them. Elena and her 3 crew members were alone. "Well," Lieutenant Torres said quietly. "That went as expected." Elena sat down and pulled out a small notebook. She began writing fast, her hand moving quickly across the page. Everything she had seen, every insult, every detail about the station's defenses went into the notebook. "Captain," whispered Chief Rodriguez, "are you sure about this plan? These aliens really think we're nothing more than space trash." Elena looked up from her writing. A small smile crossed her face. "That's exactly what we want them to think. Their pride is going to destroy them." Outside the small room, alien voices could be heard discussing the human visitors. The words were not kind, but Elena kept writing, getting ready for what was coming next. The next morning, guards came to take Elena and her team to the planet below. The shuttle ride down was another way to make them feel small. The humans had to sit in the cargo area while Zephyrian passengers enjoyed nice seats in the main cabin. Elena pressed her face to the tiny window and watched the planet get bigger below them. Zephyros Prime was amazing to see. The land was covered in cities that looked like living coral reefs. Huge towers twisted up from the ground like vines reaching for the sky. Rivers of light flowed between buildings, carrying energy from some unknown source. "Beautiful, isn't it?" said the Zephyrian pilot over the speaker system. "This is what a truly advanced people can build. Maybe someday your kind will make something half as good." The shuttle landed at the capital city's main port. As they walked across the landing area, Elena could see more wonders. The ground itself seemed alive, moving gently under their feet. The air smelled like flowers and electricity. Strange birds with metal feathers flew overhead in perfect groups. 2 new guards met them at the building. These Zephyrians wore fancy robes and carried weapons that hummed with power. Their skin patterns were more complex than the station guards, showing they had higher rank. "The High Council has agreed to see you," one guard said. "This is a great honor. Most primitive species never get this chance." The trip to the council building took them through the heart of the city. Elena tried not to stare too much at the incredible sights around her. Buildings grew and changed like living things. Transportation pods moved through tubes of flowing water. Citizens walked on paths that changed height and angle to make walking easier. The most amazing thing was how technology and biology worked together. Nothing looked like a machine. Everything seemed natural, as if the whole city had grown from seeds instead of being built by hands. Elena realized that in many ways it probably had grown rather than been built. Children stopped playing to point at the human visitors. Their games involved making light patterns with their minds. Elena watched a group of young Zephyrians create a tiny storm above their heads, complete with small lightning bolts and real rain. "Show-offs," said Dr. Sarah Chen quietly. "We get it, you have mental powers." The council building was the most impressive thing yet. It rose from the ground like a huge tree, its branches spreading wide to create natural shelters. The walls were clear but somehow gave privacy. Light moved through the building in complex patterns that hurt to look at directly. Inside the building was even more amazing. The floors were soft and warm, responding to the weight and heat of anyone walking on them. The ceiling showed a perfect view of the sky, even though they were clearly deep inside the building. Gravity seemed lighter in some areas and heavier in others, making walking feel strange. "Follow the blue lights," a guard told them. "Do not leave the path." Blue lights appeared in the floor, making a trail for them to follow. Elena noticed that the path took them through several areas where other aliens were working. It was clearly meant to show off Zephyrian technology and skills. They passed labs where scientists changed matter at the smallest level, using only their thoughts. They saw workshops where artists made sculptures that existed in multiple dimensions at the same time. In one room, Elena saw what looked like a star being held in a cage of pure thought. Every Zephyrian they passed stopped to stare. Some made comments in their own language. The translation device Elena carried picked up pieces of conversation. Such small brains. How do they think without proper neural networks? I heard they still use primitive computers instead of bioprocessing. Look at their crude clothing. No self-repair systems at all. Elena kept her face blank, but she was remembering every detail. The layout of the building, the security measures, where important equipment was located. Her trained mind stored information that might be useful later. Finally, they reached the council room. The room was huge, with a curved ceiling that showed swirling galaxies overhead. The council members sat on platforms that floated in midair, arranged in a circle around a central speaking area. There were 12 council members, each representing a different part of Zephyrian society. Elena could identify some by their appearance: a military leader with scarred skin, a scientist with an enlarged head, an artist whose skin changed colors constantly. At the center of the circle sat High Counselor Velthara. She was ancient even by Zephyrian standards, her clear skin showing the complex nerve networks beneath. Her forearms moved in slow hypnotic patterns as she talked telepathically with the other council members. "Come forward," Velthara said, her voice carrying easily across the huge room despite being barely above a whisper. Elena and her team walked to the center of the room. The floor beneath their feet became clear, showing the planet's core far below. It was a massive crystal formation that pulsed with energy, providing power for the whole civilization. "We are told you represent the human species," Velthara continued, "such as it is." Several council members made sounds that might have been polite laughter. Elena remained standing straight, her hands behind her back in a military pose that the aliens probably didn't recognize. "We do, Your Honor," Elena replied. "My name is Captain Elena Vasquez. We come seeking peaceful trade between our peoples." "Trade?" Velthara repeated the word like it tasted bad. "What could your species possibly offer that we would want?" The question was clearly meant to embarrass them, but Elena answered anyway. "Raw materials, Your Honor. Metals, crystals, basic chemicals. We understand that even advanced civilizations need these basic resources." This caused another round of amused sounds from the council. The military representative, Admiral Zethkol, leaned forward on his floating platform. "Raw materials," he said with obvious disgust. "We can create any substance we need from pure energy. We control matter at the quantum level. What use would we have for crude lumps of metal dug from primitive worlds?" Elena nodded politely. "Of course, Your Honor. We are still learning about your abilities. Perhaps you could show us some examples of your technology. We are very interested in understanding how advanced civilizations work." This request seemed to please the council members. They enjoyed showing off their superiority. For the next hour, Elena and her team watched demonstrations of Zephyrian science and technology. They watched as a scientist created complex molecules from thin air using focused thought. They saw weapons that could destroy whole continents without leaving radiation. They observed starships being grown like plants in huge biogardens. Elena asked many questions during the demonstrations. How deep did the planetary core go? What frequency did the power crystals work on? How were the bioships connected to the planet's energy grid? The Zephyrians thought her curiosity was primitive amazement and happily gave detailed answers. Dr. Chen took notes throughout the session, her pen moving quickly across paper tablets. The Zephyrians found this funny, pointing out that they stored information directly in living crystal matrices that could hold billions of times more data. The demonstration ended with a display of military power. Holographic projections showed the Zephyrian fleet in action against other species. Elena watched as bioships destroyed entire solar systems, their living hulls healing from any damage. She saw ground forces that could control minds and reshape matter with thought alone. "This is what happens to species that oppose us," Admiral Zethkol explained with obvious satisfaction. "The Korthak Confederation thought their metal ships and nuclear weapons could challenge us. We ended their civilization in 3 days. The hegemony of worlds tried to form an alliance against us," added another council member. "We turned their own planets against them. Their worlds now serve as our farming colonies." Elena nodded thoughtfully. "Very impressive, Your Honors. We have no desire to oppose such power. We seek only peaceful coexistence and modest trade." High Counselor Velthera seemed satisfied with this response. She gestured with 2 of her arms and floating platforms came down to their level. Documents appeared on the platforms written in both Zephyrian script and English. "These are the terms under which we might consider limited trade with your species," Velthera announced. "You may provide raw materials at prices we determine. In exchange, we will offer basic technology suitable for primitive civilizations." Elena looked at the documents quickly. The terms were incredibly unfair. Humans would provide valuable resources for almost nothing in return. The basic technologies offered were centuries behind what humanity already had. "These terms seem very generous," Elena said carefully. "We will need to talk with our government before accepting." "Of course," Velthara replied with what might have been a smile. "Take all the time you need. We are patient with slower species." The meeting was clearly over. Guards appeared to take the humans back to their shuttle. As they walked through the building again, Elena could hear council members discussing the meeting telepathically. The translation device caught pieces of their thoughts. "Pathetic creatures. At least they know their place. Should we even bother with formal trade? They have nothing we need." It amuses me to watch them grovel. Back on the shuttle, Elena's team stayed quiet until they were safely in space. Only then did Dr. Chen lean over and whisper, "Did you get what you needed, Captain?" Elena looked out the window at the beautiful planet below. Her face was thoughtful as she replied. 3 days later, the Persistence floated in empty space far from any star system. To anyone watching, it looked like a broken-down cargo ship taking a rest between long trips. The hull still leaked steam and the engines made worrying noises. But something had changed in how the crew acted. Elena stood in what looked like the ship's small cargo bay. Her 3 companions stood with her in a circle. For a moment, none of them spoke. Then Elena reached into her jacket and pulled out a small device. She pressed a button and the device glowed with soft blue light. "Security sweep complete," she said. "We're clear of all surveillance." Right away, the feeling in the room changed. The 4 humans stood straighter, their casual faces replaced by professional focus. Elena's voice took on a tone of command that hadn't been there during their diplomatic mission. "Computer, activate Privacy Protocol 7, she said clearly. "Privacy Protocol 7 activated," came a crisp electronic response. "All external monitoring systems offline. Internal recording disabled." Dr. Chen walked to what looked like a damaged wall panel. She pressed her hand against it and the panel slid aside to show a hidden control room. Banks of advanced computers hummed quietly behind walls of exotic metals that definitely weren't standard cargo ship equipment. "Gentlemen, Dr. Chen," Elena said formally. "It's time for introductions. Real introductions." She reached up and peeled something from her face. It was a thin mask that had changed the shape of her nose and jaw. Underneath, her features were sharper, more angular. Her eyes held the calculating gaze of someone used to life and death decisions. "I am Admiral Elena Vasquez, commander of the Terran Strategic Response Division. This mission has been 3 years in the planning." Lieutenant Torres removed similar disguises from his face and hands. "Colonel Miguel Torres, Special Operations. I've been officially dead for 2 years." Dr. Chen pulled off gloves that had hidden mechanical implants on her fingers. "Dr. Sarah Chen, Quantum Physics Specialist. I designed the theoretical framework for what we're about to do." The last member of their group, who had been introduced as Chief Engineer Rodriguez, removed a device from his throat that had been changing his voice. "Commander James Wright, Weapons Systems Specialist. The device we're carrying is my creation." Elena gestured toward the hidden control room. "Shall we?" They moved into the concealed space, which was far larger than the cargo bay should have allowed. The walls were lined with screens showing data streams, star charts, and real-time intelligence feeds. At the center sat a device about the size of a briefcase, surrounded by protective fields and monitoring equipment. The quantum resonance disruptor, Dr. Chen said, approaching the device with obvious pride and concern. 15 years of research, 5 years of development, and 3 years of testing. It's the most dangerous weapon humanity has ever created. Colonel Torres called up a holographic display of Zephyros Prime. The planet rotated slowly, showing its surface features and internal structure. Thanks to Admiral Vasquez's intelligence gathering, we now have complete geological data on the target. Elena studied the display. The Zephyrians were very helpful. They showed us exactly how their civilization works. Their biotechnology, their ships, their weapons, even their cities all depend on the planetary core. The core is essentially one massive crystal formation, Dr. Chen explained. It generates the energy that powers their entire civilization. But crystals have a weakness. They can be made to resonate at specific frequencies. Commander Wright highlighted several areas on the holographic planet. When crystals resonate beyond their natural limits, they break apart. In the case of a planetary core this size, that breakage would be catastrophic. Elena walked around the display, studying it from all angles. The Zephyrians have made themselves completely dependent on their planet's crystal core. No backup systems, no alternate power sources. Their arrogance has created a single point of failure for their entire civilization. The question is, Colonel Torres said quietly, are we really going to do this? Destroying their planet means killing billions of civilians. The room fell silent. Elena stared at the holographic planet for a long moment before responding. Let me show you something, she said, walking to another console. Computer display classified file Omega-7. New images appeared on the screens around them. They showed battles in distant star systems. Planets burning, ships fleeing in terror, refugees crowded into damaged vessels. The hegemony of worlds, Elena said. 17 different species working together for mutual defense. The Zephyrians destroyed them 6 months ago. Not just defeated them. Destroyed them. Entire planets turned into slave colonies. Billions of people dead or enslaved, more images flashed by. The Korthak Confederation. They tried to negotiate. The Zephyrians killed their diplomats and used bioweapons to turn their own planets against them. 3 billion casualties. The Crystalline Collective. The Silicon Republic. The Aquatic Alliance. Each name was accompanied by images of destruction. All gone. All destroyed by Zephyrian arrogance and cruelty. Elena turned back to her team. Intelligence reports indicate that humanity is next on their list. They see us as a potential threat because we're expanding rapidly and developing new technologies. Their plan is to attack Earth within the next 2 years. Dr. Chen studied the readings from the quantum disruptor. The device is ready. But once we use it, there's no going back. This will change everything. It already has changed everything, Elena replied. The Zephyrians have been eliminating potential rivals for centuries. They've made it clear that they consider any species that might someday challenge them to be a threat that must be removed. Commander Wright pulled up tactical displays showing Zephyrian fleet movements. Our intelligence suggests they're planning simultaneous attacks on 12 different species. Earth is definitely on the list. Colonel Torres leaned against a console. So we're not just defending ourselves. We're defending everyone. Elena nodded. Every species in this galaxy lives in fear of the Zephyrians. They've created an empire based on terror and superiority. Someone has to stop them. But why us? Dr. Chen asked. There are other species with advanced technology. Why does it have to be humanity? Elena smiled grimly. Because we're the only ones they underestimate. Every other species they see as a potential threat. But humans, we're just primitive cargo haulers with rusty ships and crude technology. That perception is our greatest weapon, Commander Wright added. They've shown us their entire civilization, explained how everything works, revealed all their weaknesses. They did it because they think we're too stupid to be dangerous. Elena activated another display showing the current positions of Zephyrian and human ships throughout the galaxy. Fleet Command has been positioning our forces for months. The Zephyrians think they're tracking a few dozen human cargo ships. They have no idea that each one of those cargo ships is actually a disguised warship, carrying a full crew of specialists. The entire Terran Strategic Response Division is ready, Colonel Torres confirmed. 147 ships, over 10,000 personnel, all disguised as harmless traders and cargo haulers. Dr. Chen ran final diagnostics on the quantum disruptor. The device is functioning perfectly. We can target the specific crystal formations that power their civilization. The effect will cascade through their entire planetary core. Elena looked at each of her team members. This is our last chance to change our minds. Once we proceed, there's no going back. We'll be responsible for the destruction of the Zephyrian homeworld. Commander Wright was the first to speak. They've killed billions. They're planning to kill billions more. This isn't murder. It's stopping a genocide. Colonel Torres nodded. Every day we wait, more innocent species die. The Zephyrians won't stop until they control the entire galaxy. Dr. Chen looked at the readings from her device. The science is sound. We can do this cleanly. The planet will be destroyed, but there won't be lingering radiation or environmental damage to nearby systems. Elena took a deep breath. Then we proceed. Computer, send message to Fleet Command. Authorization code Omega 77 Alpha. Execute Operation Fault Line. Message sent, the computer replied. Fleet Command acknowledges. All units report ready status. Elena looked at the holographic display of Zephyros Prime one more time. Soon that beautiful planet would be nothing but debris floating in space. The thought didn't make her happy, but it didn't make her sad either. It was simply necessary. Take us back to the Zephyrian system, she ordered. Time to finish this. As the Persistence changed course, Elena wondered if history would remember them as heroes or villains. But that didn't matter now. What mattered was ensuring that humanity and countless other species would survive to see tomorrow. The die was cast. There was no turning back. The Persistence appeared at the edge of the Zephyros Prime system exactly 72 hours after leaving. To the Zephyrian sensors, it looked like the same pathetic cargo ship that had limped away in shame after the failed diplomatic talks. Admiral Kethvar was on duty when the detection alarm sounded. He looked at the sensor reading with amusement and called over his communications officer. Look what's crawled back, he said with obvious delight. The human garbage scow has returned. I wonder if they're here to beg for better trade terms. The communications officer, a young Zephyrian named Teloth, studied the readings. Their ship appears to be in even worse condition than before. I'm detecting multiple hull breaches and engine malfunctions. Typical human engineering, Kethvar laughed. They probably broke down halfway home and had to turn around. Open a channel. Let's hear them grovel. On the bridge of the Persistence, Elena sat calmly in her captain's chair. She wore the same simple uniform as before, but her posture was different, straighter, more confident, ready. Incoming transmission from the Zephyrian fleet, reported Colonel Torres from the communications station. Put it through, Elena ordered. Admiral Kethvar's smug face appeared on the main screen. His forearms gestured dismissively as he spoke. Well, the primitive humans have returned. Did your rust bucket break down on the way home? Elena looked directly into the camera. When she spoke, her voice was calm and professional. Admiral Kethvar, we need to talk. This caused fresh laughter from the Zephyrian bridge crew. Talk, Kethvar repeated. What could you possibly have to say that would interest us? Did you decide to accept our generous trade offer? Actually, Elena said, I have a different proposal. Complete surrender of all Zephyrian military forces and immediate cessation of hostile actions against other species. The laughter stopped abruptly. Kethvar stared at the screen for a moment, then began laughing even harder than before. Did you hear that? He called to his crew. The humans are demanding our surrender. One broken cargo ship against the entire Zephyrian Imperial fleet. I know it sounds unreasonable, Elena continued calmly, but I'm hoping you'll consider it. It would save a lot of lives. Kethvar wiped tears of laughter from his large eyes. Human, you have provided excellent entertainment. But this joke has gone far enough. Turn your ship around and leave our system immediately, or we will destroy you. Elena nodded thoughtfully. I was afraid you'd say that. Computer, execute stealth protocol termination. Stealth protocol termination initiated, came the response from the ship's computer. On Zephyrian sensors throughout the system, something impossible began to happen. New contacts appeared on every screen. Ships materialized out of empty space as if they had been ghosts becoming solid. First 10 ships appeared, then 20, then 50. Within minutes, 147 human vessels surrounded the Zephyrian fleet. They had been there all along, hidden by stealth technology that the Zephyrians hadn't known existed. The human ships didn't look like the Persistence. These vessels were sleek, angular, and clearly built for war. Their hulls were dark metal that seemed to absorb light. Weapons ports glowed with contained energy. They moved with precision and purpose that spoke of advanced technology and skilled crews. On the Zephyrian command ship, chaos erupted. Officers shouted reports and tried to make sense of what they were seeing. Admiral Kethvar stared at his screens in disbelief. Where did they come from? He demanded. How did they hide from our sensors? Unknown, sir, his tactical officer replied, his voice shaking. Our sensors show no indication that these ships were ever there. It's as if they appeared out of nothing. Elena's face remained on the main screen, watching their panic with calm interest. Admiral, I should probably introduce myself properly. I am Admiral Elena Vasquez of the Terran Strategic Response Division. The ship you've been mocking is the TSD Persistence, a reconnaissance vessel designed to look like civilian cargo hauler. Kethvar found his voice. Impossible. Humans don't have this kind of technology. Your species is primitive. We've seen your ships. You've seen what we wanted you to see, Elena replied. We've been studying your empire for years. We know about your attacks on peaceful species. We know about your plans to invade Earth. We know everything. The tactical situation was becoming clear to the Zephyrian officers. Their fleet of 37 ships was outnumbered 4-1. The human vessels had superior positioning and had achieved complete tactical surprise. This is a trick, Kethvar said, but his voice lacked conviction. Some kind of holographic deception. Computer, Elena said without looking away from the camera. Demonstrate the reality of our presence. One of the human ships fired a single shot across the bow of a Zephyrian cruiser. The energy beam cut through space and vaporized a small asteroid beyond the Zephyrian vessel. The shot was perfectly aimed and controlled, demonstrating both power and precision. No hologram could do that, Elena pointed out helpfully. Alarms began sounding throughout the Zephyrian fleet. Officers scrambled to battle stations. Bioships began to glow as their living systems prepared for combat. Weapons came online, shields activated. But Elena wasn't finished talking. Admiral, I want you to understand something. We didn't come here to conquer your empire or enslave your people. We're not interested in ruling over other species, but we will not allow you to continue your campaign of genocide against peaceful civilizations. High Counselor Velthara's voice interrupted from the planet's surface. Her ancient face appeared on screens throughout both fleets. Admiral Kethvar, what is the meaning of this? Why are human warships in our system? Elena turned to address the High Counselor directly. Your Honor, we tried diplomacy. We offered peaceful coexistence. Your response was mockery and threats. You've made it clear that the Zephyrian Empire will never coexist peacefully with other species. You dare threaten us? Velthara's voice carried centuries of outrage. You primitive creatures think you can challenge the greatest civilization in the galaxy? I don't think, Elena replied quietly. I know. She gestured to Colonel Torres, who began entering commands into his console. Throughout the human fleet, weapon systems came online. Energy readings spiked as massive destructive forces were brought to bear. But the most important preparation was happening aboard the Persistence itself. Deep in the hidden compartments, Dr. Chen and Commander Wright were making final adjustments to the quantum resonance disruptor. Target lock acquired, Dr. Chen reported. The device is focused on the primary crystal formations in the planetary core. Elena took a deep breath. This was the moment of no return. Once she gave the order, there would be no taking it back. Admiral Kethvar, High Counselor Velthara, you have one final chance. Surrender your military forces and agree to leave other species in peace. This is your last opportunity to avoid catastrophe. The Zephyrian response was predictable. Kethvar's face contorted with rage. You think we fear your pathetic fleet? We have conquered 100 worlds. We have destroyed civilizations that were ancient when your species was still learning to make fire. Our bioships will tear your metal hulks apart, Velthara added. Our psychic warriors will crush your primitive minds. You have made the last mistake your species will ever make. Elena nodded sadly. I was hoping you'd see reason, but I suppose arrogance is too deeply ingrained in your culture. She turned to her weapons officer. Commander Wright, you may fire when ready. Aye, Admiral, Wright replied. Quantum resonance disruptor is charged and locked on target. Elena looked at the beautiful planet below them one last time. Soon it would be gone, along with billions of Zephyrian civilians. The thought filled her with sadness but not regret. Too many other species had already died to Zephyrian arrogance. Fire. The quantum resonance disruptor fired without any visible flash or explosion. There was no dramatic beam of light cutting through space. To outside observers, nothing seemed to happen at all. The weapon's energy passed through normal matter like it wasn't there. Going straight down to the planet's crystalline core, Admiral Kethvar watched his sensors for several seconds, then began laughing again. "Is that it? Is that your terrible weapon? Nothing happened, you pathetic humans." Elena said nothing. She simply watched the planet below and waited. Deep beneath the surface of Zephyros Prime, something extraordinary was beginning to occur. The quantum energy from the disruptor found the first crystal formation and began to resonate with it. The crystal started vibrating at a frequency it had never experienced before. At first, the vibration was tiny, barely detectable even by the most sensitive instruments. But crystals have a unique property. When one crystal resonates, it can cause nearby crystals to resonate as well. And the Zephyrian planet's core was essentially one massive connected crystal network. The resonance spread from crystal to crystal like ripples in a pond. Each new crystal that joined the vibration made the effect stronger. What had started as a barely detectable tremor was growing into something much more powerful. On the planet's surface, the first sign of trouble came in the form of a small earthquake in the capital city. It lasted only a few seconds and caused no damage. Most Zephyrians didn't even notice it, but Elena noticed. She was watching the planet's energy readings on her screens, and she could see the resonance cascade beginning to build. "Initial resonance established," Dr. Chen reported quietly. "The cascade is propagating through the crystal matrix faster than projected." High Counselor Velthara was still speaking over the communication channel, her ancient voice full of contempt. "Your weapon has failed, humans. Now you will face the consequences of your arrogance. Fleet Admiral Kethvar, destroy these insects." The Zephyrian fleet began to move into attack formation. Their bioships pulsed with aggressive energy patterns. Weapons that could destroy continents began charging for battle. But before they could fire, the second earthquake hit the planet. This one was stronger, lasting nearly a minute and causing minor damage to some of the taller structures in the capital city. "What was that?" Velthara demanded from her council chambers. "Seismic activity, Your Honor," came the reply from a panicked technician. "But it's strange. The epicenter seems to be directly beneath the planetary core." Elena continued watching her readings. The resonance cascade was accelerating beyond Dr. Chen's most optimistic projections. The entire crystal network was beginning to vibrate in harmony, creating a feedback loop that grew stronger with each passing moment. Admiral Kethvar was growing impatient with the delays. "Open fire on the human fleet," he ordered. "Show them the power of the Zephyrian Empire." But as the bioships began to fire, their weapons sputtered and failed. The energy conduits that powered their weapons drew power from the planetary core, and that core was beginning to destabilize. "Sir, we're experiencing power fluctuations throughout the fleet," reported the tactical officer. "All ships are reporting similar problems." The third earthquake was impossible to ignore. It shook the planet for 5 full minutes, toppling buildings and opening massive cracks in the ground. The beautiful cities that had grown like coral reefs began to crumble as their living foundations lost connection to the planetary power grid. "Evacuate the surface," Velthara commanded. "All citizens to the emergency shelters." But it was already too late. The resonance cascade had reached critical mass. Every crystal in the planet's core was now vibrating at maximum amplitude, creating stresses that no natural formation could withstand. Elena watched the energy readings spike beyond the scale of her instruments. "All ships prepare for planetary destruction," she announced over the fleet communication channel. "This is going to be spectacular." The fourth earthquake never stopped. It began as a continuous rumble that grew louder and more violent with each passing second. The ground began to crack and split as tectonic forces beyond imagination tore at the planet's structure. Admiral Kethvar stared at his screens in growing horror. His bioships were losing power rapidly as their connection to the planetary core failed. Some ships were already dead in space, their living systems withering without the energy they needed to survive. "What have you done?" he whispered. Elena's voice was calm as she replied, "We targeted the one weakness in your perfect civilization. Your dependence on a single source of power. The cracks in the planet's surface were growing larger. What had started as hairline fractures were becoming chasms miles wide. The beautiful cities were sliding into these new valleys as the ground beneath them shifted and collapsed. Deep underground, the crystal formations were finally reaching their breaking point. Billions of years of gradual growth were being undone in minutes as the resonance tore apart the atomic bonds that held the crystals together. The planetary core began to fragment. When it happened fast. One moment, Zephyros Prime was a beautiful world with minor earthquake damage. The next moment, a crack appeared that ran from pole to pole, visible from space as a dark line across the planet's surface. The crack widened. Atmosphere began venting into space as the planet's crust separated. Magma flowed up from the depths, creating new mountain ranges in seconds. High Counselor Velthara's final transmission was barely coherent. Impossible. The core. How did you... Primitive species. This cannot have the transmission cut off as the communication arrays were destroyed. Elena watched with a mixture of awe and sadness as the planet literally came apart. The two halves of Zephyros Prime began drifting away from each other, trailing debris and gases into space. The world that had been home to billions of Zephyrians for thousands of years was gone. The Zephyrian fleet was in chaos. Ships that had lost power were drifting helplessly. Others were trying desperately to escape the gravitational upheaval caused by the planet's destruction. A few bioships that still had emergency power were launching escape pods and rescue craft. Admiral Kethvar's ship was among those still functional. His face appeared on Elena's screen one last time, but the arrogance was gone. In its place was shock, terror, and something that might have been respect. How? He asked simply. Elena considered her answer carefully. Your people spent thousands of years perfecting a civilization based on a single point of failure. We spent 15 years learning how to exploit that weakness, but we are the most advanced species in the galaxy, Kethvar said, his voice hollow. You were the most arrogant, Elena corrected. There's a difference. She opened a channel to the entire surviving Zephyrian fleet. This is Admiral Vasquez to all Zephyrian vessels. We are prepared to render humanitarian assistance to survivors. Drop your shields and prepare to receive aid. The response was immediate. Every functioning Zephyrian ship lowered its defenses and began broadcasting distress signals. The fight had gone out of them completely. Colonel Torres looked up from his console. Admiral, we're receiving surrender transmissions from Zephyrian forces throughout the galaxy. Word of what happened here is spreading fast. Elena nodded. Begin rescue operations. Priority to civilian evacuation. And send a message to Fleet Command. Operation Fault Line is complete. The Zephyrian Empire has fallen. Over the next several hours, human ships worked alongside the few functional Zephyrian vessels to rescue survivors from the destroyed planet. Millions of Zephyrians were pulled from the wreckage and debris, though billions more had perished in the destruction. Elena stood on the bridge of the Persistence, watching the rescue efforts through the main view screen. The two halves of Zephyros Prime continued drifting apart, slowly becoming separate worlds orbiting the same star. Dr. Chen joined her at the view screen. The resonance cascade exceeded all our projections, she said quietly. I didn't expect it to work quite so thoroughly. Neither did I, Elena admitted. But perhaps it's better this way. A quick clean end rather than a long bloody war. Do you think we did the right thing? Dr. Chen asked. Elena was quiet for a long moment. Ask me in 100 years when we see what kind of galaxy we've created. If the other species live in peace and freedom, then yes. If we've just become the new tyrants, then no. A communication request came in from one of the rescue ships. Elena accepted it, and the face of a young Zephyrian appeared on the screen. This one looked different from the arrogant aliens they had met before. Humbled, broken. Admiral Vasquez, the young alien said, I am Velkoth, representing the Zephyrian survivors. We wish to thank you for the rescue efforts. You're welcome, Elena replied simply. We also wish to formally surrender all remaining Zephyrian military forces and colonies. We accept whatever terms you choose to impose. Elena shook her head. We're not here to impose terms or rule over anyone. We just wanted the killing to stop. Velkoth looked confused. But you have defeated us. By right of conquest, you could claim our territories, our technology, our people. That's not who we are, Elena said firmly. Humanity has no interest in building an empire. We just want to live in peace alongside other species. Then what happens to us? Velkoth asked. We have no home, no planet, no empire. What is left for the Zephyrian people?